Lanny, I know people that were with the company at the time, and I know people who could pinpoint that moment and said to me and people within my circle at the time, because I did business with WWF back in the day, and they said that was the moment they could see a clear and visible change in Randy Savage. That from that point on, it was fuck them all. It's just business now.
That's right. That's right.
And,
go ahead.
You use the right words, though. You use the right words. That's what Randy. That's the F-bomb that Randy likes to use when he's angry.
Yeah.
And so, right after that battle royal, Strongbow has got a sling on his arm and his cast. And Randy says right in front of the boys, "What happened to you?" "Lou Thesz threw me over the top rope and broke my arm." And Randy says, "Lou Thesz didn't break your arm. You broke your own arm because you're too effing fat. You're a disgrace to the business, and you always have been." And I said, "Oh my God.
I heard that.
Is this the way he's going to talk now?" He says, "Hey, I was a gentleman for 2 years. They don't love me anyway, so screw them."
Exactly. Go ahead, Murphy.
Yeah, I was going to say that battle royal, wasn't that known as what was it, the brawl for the Geritol?
Right. Yes, the brawl for the Geritol and the Metamucil.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mike Messier, go ahead, Mikey.
Well, I wanted to, give Lanny a little vote of confidence here because talking about Lanny's career in the WWF specifically, I remember seeing you as a young child. I was the young child in the audience. You wrestled Iron Mike Sharp in the first match of the night at the Providence Civic Center, I think in July of 1985, to a 20-minute draw. And even as a kid, having read the wrestling magazines, I was like, how come this guy from Memphis is wrestling Sharp to a draw? A couple of matches later, your brother got a victory over S.D. Jones, and it was one of the first educational experiences to me that these two guys are equally talented, and it's really just who does the promoter in any given territory want to push his pencil towards. And in that case, it was the Macho Man and not yourself. But you hung in there, and you did your babyface run for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then when the opportunity presented itself, you took the advantage of turning heel, and similar in a way to Bret the Hitman Hart, who started off in the opening match or the second match of his show. Bret Hart at one point became a main eventer, and with your victory over Hulk Hogan on Saturday night's main event, you went from the guy wrestling Iron Mike Sharp for 20 minutes to the guy beating Hulk Hogan via countout, but nonetheless a victory over Hulk Hogan on national television, worldwide television, which really only 3 or 4 guys ever did in that WWF Hulkamania run. So you got to give yourself credit, Lanny. It's not just because you were somebody's brother or son. You did a lot of work on your own. You kept yourself in great shape. For a guy who was not 6'9", but you held yourself in there quite well with the Giants. I think you have to be pretty proud of your own individual body of work.
Well, I look back on all of it with some pride and very little regret. The only regret I have is I felt in 1989 when I was getting ready to be the Genius, I had a little adventure with a drug called decadurabolin, which is a steroid.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you this because I'm proud of it. I'm telling you this because you have a big audience and maybe somebody out there is considering taking steroids. And I'm here to say, please don't. The health is more important than the wealth. As a matter of fact, without health, you're nothing.
Absolutely.
I got away with it, but I'm warning you and your audience, whoever is thinking about it, please don't.
Well, I you know what? Picking up on that point, I remember seeing you in Philadelphia a few times, and then for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 months you disappeared, and when you came back, brother, you were jacked. You were
Well,
jacked up.
yeah,
And I thought to myself, what the hell is he doing? Because, I mean, exercise and hanging and banging and saying your prayers and eating your vitamins, brother, will do so much for you. But, a shot in the ass with Deca will do a hell of a lot more.
that's
Did
true.
you feel the ramifications of that? And how did that newfound physique translate it into your work or lack thereof in some cases?
Well, it was right after my match with Hulk Hogan. I was in the shower, and I took a good, honest look at my genital situation, and
Yeah.
my testicles had shrunk to the size of raisins. And I decided, you ever play Monopoly in jail or just visiting?
Yeah.
Okay, in jail or just visiting. Well, it was either I was on main events or just visiting.
Yeah.
The only reason I wrestled with Hulk Hogan is because Hulk can't work with Hulk Hogan. So he needs somebody else to wrestle. He always needs an opponent.
Sure.
Well, I was his opponent, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I got to the pinnacle. I'm just visiting, and now I'm going to take the needle out. And when I did, all those beautiful jacked muscles looked like a balloon at the end of the party.
Yeah.
And deflated. Well, it wasn't oxygen; it was water.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, so when I took the needle out, I noticed I had a lack of libido or sex drive, but I was married at the time, so it made no difference at all.
Okay, then.
Any of the married men on the panel want to comment on that?
I'm keeping my fucking mouth shut.
Yes, no comment.
Lanny, can I follow up on that topic? If without putting anyone under the bus there on that topic, was that something, the steroid use or abuse, was that something in the locker rooms that was prevalent in the mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s? Was that something that was kind of a running concern or a running topic? Were guys concerned about their physique so much that they felt self pressure or exterior pressure to take substances like that?
Well, I guess it was legal back then, and this was before the big scandal. Hang on a minute.
Sure.
Amazon, stop. Okay. They started, for some reason, they thought I wanted to hear some music. I got Alexa, but I changed its name, So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of, even when I got myself all jacked up, I still had the worst physique in the locker room. I mean, you had Ultimate Warrior, Warlord, Barbarian, Tony Atlas. How many, everywhere you looked, there was another muscle guy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, at my best, I wasn't one of the best, in the muscle department.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
I was hoping to steer the conversation a little bit. We were talking a minute ago about your promo in Boston. I want you to know, while not involved in the business, the persona that I have doing panels and various other things in wrestling commentary is the smartest man in the room, heavily inspired by you. I want to commend you that I could spend hours writing some of the statements I would have to make or some of the promos. The fact that your famous promo in Boston was literally, I'm going to go turn heel now. Bam. That is, like I said earlier, Mount Rushmore of talkers. But speaking of being the smartest man in the room, I was hoping to expand a bit on your famous contract with WCW, because you were talking about as the years went on.
That was brilliant.
First time I actually ever met you was at an event sponsored by WCW, and like most fans, I didn't even realize you worked for the company. I was hoping you could kind of expand on that story, that part of your career.
Well, Randy and I had something in common. We had both been taken to the cleaners in our marriages. Randy more famously with Elizabeth, me privately, but the story's the same. You start over. And Randy had an idea for me to be Gorgeous George. He wanted me to bleach my hair. I even got a, what do you call that? Hair weave or something, a little bit more hair in the back,
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Extension.
whatever it was. And
Yeah.
it was professionally done. And then, but even so, I lost a lot of hair and looked like the Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz. I mean, really, I wasn't Gorgeous Georgie. I was pretty sloppy for Gorgeous George, but I did my best. I trained. I got in the sunbed. I did everything Randy asked. Every time he saw me, he checked my progress. In the meantime, Randy didn't just go to WCW. He took something with him, the Slim Jim contract, and he gave it to Ted Turner worth $750,000 a year.
Yes, sure was.
So it was then easy for him to get me a contract, even though, and they had a kind of a revolving booking committee. So there was people that wanted to bring me in and the people that didn't want to bring me in. And what really happened is I stayed under contract. I never got brought in.
Yeah.
And I saved my money and invested it wisely. And, you call it ill-gotten funds if you want, but I was working out, it wasn't my intention to be a welfare recipient, but I'll guarantee you, Vince McMahon wouldn't have allowed it. He would never have allowed it.
Absolutely.
But see, when you're dealing with
Never
OPM, other people's money,
Yeah.
that's what happens. That's what the government does. They just give you money, but it's OPM money. It's fiat money. They don't care. It's not theirs. So,
as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't ill-gotten gains. Let's be honest about it. Big brother was taking care of little brother, and he earned that money, and it's his absolute right to share the wealth with his younger brother. Why the hell not?
Can't argue with that.
Well, what I did was I'm a one-time loser. Never again will I say the two words, yes, dear. And, I live very modestly, and I don't really fret about tomorrow's bread. So, in other words, there's a line in the Bible, pride comes before the fall. And if you're trying, like, if you've been watching, like, the Viceland Dark Side of the Ring.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Dino Bravo had that $1 million home and the $1 million cars and had a high lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then when wrestling didn't love him anymore, that's where he got into organized crime, and then you make good money, but it's a very bad retirement plan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great segue too, by the way, Lanny. We actually have Dino Bravo's daughter coming on the show in 2 weeks. So
is she doesn't she just speak French?
She speaks French and English. She speaks a little bit of English.
Okay.
But we will have an interpreter here for her.
Mr. Murphy, you said you got an Irish name, but you said you're French.
No, that's Messier. That's French.
No, not French.
That's Mike Messier. That's French. That's me.
No,
Messier.
Mike Murphy is Irish, but he's got like Italian grandmothers and relatives. Mike Messier, we're trying to figure out what he is.
I'm French, but I saw Dino Bravo's daughter. Maybe I'll learn French in honor of her, Angelo, if I'm on the panel that night.
She's too many mics on the show, Angelo.
She's actually a full-blooded Italian girl who speaks French.
Well, if I could ask another question to Lanny.
Of course you can.
Well, on this topic, Lanny, because you brought up the Dino Bravo thing, and one thing that was really heartbreaking as a pro wrestling fan in the late 90s, we started seeing gentlemen like Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, Bam Bam Bigelow's Junkyard Dog in a car accident. So many guys from that rock and wrestling or golden era of wrestling that you were a part of so many guys in that generation passed away for one reason or another before their time. How, and of course, your own brother, the Macho Man, years later, although he had a great run in WCW, before that. But of those guys that I just mentioned, how does that feel for you? Because I'm getting to the age myself where a lot of my friends are passing away at young ages. How did you survive that? How do you compartmentalize that when friends of yours, colleagues, start to pass on?
Oh, I'll tell you what.
Gentlemen, I have to step out a second.
Some of it is because of some of it was drug induced. And even the toxicology reports would indicate that.
Right.
So. I loved Roddy Piper, but people said, isn't that too bad he died at 61? I said, well, I love him, but, I can't believe he made it to 61 with the stuff he was doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And trust me, there's nobody in the business I love more than Roddy Piper. What a fantastic guy, best personality, great interview, everything, charming person, caring, sincere. And the drugs ruined his personality too. Mm. He had a lot more to offer I hate drugs.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
He called it too, Roddy Piper, a couple of years before he died. He was doing an interview and he mentioned the pension plan kicks in at 65, and he just kind of was like, but I'm not going to see 65. We all know that. And it was just a throwaway line, but he called it.
Well, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy for Roddy. Because, one thing that if you knew Roddy, and I got to know him a little bit, Roddy was self-destructive. Roddy was his own worst enemy. There were a lot of guys like that. Buddy Landell was the same way. He was his own worst enemy. But wrestling is filled with guys that are their own worst enemy.
Right.
And, and I think, their punishment is to be a wrestler. Quite frankly.
Yeah.
So let's turn the subject a little bit. Lanny, what did you learn from ICW? What did you learn that stayed with you?
I learned that I didn't want to be a promoter. People say, how come you don't run shows now? I said, because I did then. I said, I didn't like it then, and I won't like it now. Too much stress. I don't like stress.
Yeah.
I'm 65. I just want to have peace. And I mean P-E-A-C-E, not the other one.
Exactly. Exactly. I hear you, my friend. I hear you. Well, go ahead, Mike Murphy.
Lanny, also myself being a semi-retired worker, and we all know in the business, you're going to get hurt eventually. It's not avoidable. What was the worst injury you ever sustained, while you were in the business?
I was wrestling Big Boss Man every night. He was trying to get over we were in Newfoundland it seemed like a forever tour of Newfoundland. And the first time I wrestled him, he kept doing that Bubba Slam. Oh my God. And I said, hey, can you stop that? You're hurting me. And he said, no, I got to keep doing it as I'm trying to get over. And I said, but there's no TV cameras in Newfoundland. You can set your hair on fire and nobody will care here. So anyway, he kept doing it and I kept hurting my neck. And, now I can't even shoot baskets because it aggravates the injury that he gave me. And it was all, I don't know, I think it's, let's just say some people take liberty with their opponent.
Mm-hmm. Lanny, I'm going to tie into that. I always like to ask people that have had a lot of ring time this same question because it just fascinates me that I've never gotten the same answer twice. What's the difference between getting over and being over?
Well, a lot of people get over, and only very few people get to be over. Okay.
Okay.
Once you get a certain level, you become wrestling royalty. In the 80s, it was Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, and Roddy Piper. And then the 90s came and it was The Rock and Stone Cold. And you can go on. And you know what I mean? It's all a matter of opinion. But every once in a while, somebody is over. And they become, with their face on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. That's an interesting take on it.
I like it.
Well, Lanny, I'll tell you what. I want to say thank you for giving us this much of your time. I know I said I'd keep you about an hour. We're at an hour and 15 right now. I am going to let you go, but I am going to ask you if you'll consider coming back with us.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I must say, you just had a guest that is somebody I respect very much, and that is Magnum TA. And I love him, and what a great man he is.
He really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, Evan Ginsberg, Tony Villano, these are all my friends. And the reason, actually, Tony's the reason that I did your podcast, because, he asked me to, and I'm not in the habit of saying no to Tony Villano because I love him.
Yeah. I'd be afraid to say no to Tony. I would.
Yeah,
Tony's a great guy. Lanny, you and I actually have quite a few mutual real-life friends. And I'm honored to have those friends. They've opened a lot of doors for me, my friend. They really have.
And since you're near Philadelphia, you must be friends with Bill Apter.
Believe it or not, I don't know Bill. I really don't.
He lives in Philadelphia, and he's around. I don't.
Yeah, well, he actually he lives right outside of Philadelphia in Norristown, Pennsylvania, and
he's about 10 minutes from me.
Yeah, he sure is. I know people who know him very well. I've actually, believe it or not, in 48 years in the business, I have never met Bill Apter, and that's a shoot.
Well, you're missing a lot because he's an excellent person, and maybe one day your paths will cross.
I certainly hope so, because we got a great show coming up about wrestling writers, and I'd love to have him on. I really would. Maybe I want to reach out to Bill Apter, and maybe I'll have Mike Messier do that. Lanny, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. If you feel so inclined, the invite is open-ended. You are welcome here anytime you wish.
Thank you very much. You guys have a beautiful day, and thanks for a very good interview. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you, Lanny.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Lanny.
you, Lanny.
Take care, my friend. Lanny Poffo, everybody. Bye-bye, Lanny. That was a great interview. Great interview with Lanny Poffo.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan.
Yes.
We've been racking them up on the show here lately, brother.
Yeah. It's been a good run, and he mentioned, within the span of a few days, Magnum TA, Evan Ginsberg, and Lanny Poffo. That's a hell of a week for any show.
And wait a minute, and one more. Don't forget Nikita Brezhnikov.
That's right.
Yeah, Mikey had an interview with Nikita for the Refs Roundtable. Now, Mikey, that interview that'll be airing tonight. It's actually already up on YouTube, but it's going to hit the audio platforms. Our iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, Podbean, Podbay. Who the hell am I missing?
I think
a lot.
Apple Podcasts. I think you're on there.
Apple. Yep. If you can find a podcast, we're there.
Yeah, pretty much any platforms. Over 100.
122 worldwide, Dan.
Yep.
And let me share some news with you.
Please do.
Let me share some news with you. I was going to save this for the absolute end of the show, but I'm going to tell you guys now because
Good.
you're my friends and I like you.
Thanks.
Well, I like most of you. No, I love you all. Wrestling with the Future broke the 1 million download mark.
Congratulations,
Nice.
Angelo. That's great. And thanks to the audience.
1,042,717.
That's awesome.
Was that for all the shows for the week? Or
That was as of airtime tonight for the week. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks to the listeners,
Sure.
because without the listeners listening, then we wouldn't have anybody.
Yeah, the ever-growing audience.
Yeah.
I know, Angelo, you kind of half mentioned it in jest, but it is legitimately one of the fastest-growing wrestling shows.
Oh, I didn't mention it in jest, brother. I was serious as a heart attack. That's just serious. We are a growing player in the podcast market. It's amazing. You know, Jeff the Ref used to call us the little podcast that could. And I said, and we did.
Yeah.
Well, Angelo, if I could say something on you, I don't want to speak out of turn, but
Go ahead.
if there are, I would think that if there are sponsor possibilities, if anyone out there runs a business, whether it's a small business, big business, talk to Angelo, because perhaps advertising on the show or on the website would be something that you could work out with Angelo and get us while it's good, because this would be the best time for a sponsor to come on and join and partner with us as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Yeah, we're always open to. To be honest with you, I have a full plate. I really do.
Yep.
And in fact, Dan did. And by the way, you did a hell of a job last night.
Well, thank you.
I liked the flow of the show. I liked the fact that you just sat back and let Evan talk, because all you got to do is you ask Evan Ginsberg one question.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a night off for you, brother. It's a night off. It really is.
He had a lot of good stories. I'm glad I got that chance.
You have barely scratched the surface with Evan. Please, are you kidding me? You could do a 5-parter on Evan. He'll never tell the same story twice. I love Evan Ginsberg. But I've had, I've got such a full plate and I've got so much going on. And yesterday, and I just want to say, everybody, I missed being on the show last night, but you know what? I needed the night off.
You deserved it. And then to give Angelo credit here on behalf of everybody.
And my wife got a chuckle out of it. She said, since when are you on assignment? She said, you're sitting here in your pajamas. I said, shh, I'm on assignment.
Well, tell you what,
But no, I was feeling like shit yesterday. I couldn't move. My back was killing me. It was, I just had a couple of rough days.
Man, and I went and had that whole story written up about you being on assignment. Less than a day later, you're breaking kayfabe on the show. Well, look at that. The real scoops happen here.
We said you were out hunting new guests for the show, Angelo. You should have let us
bring in the best content.
We said you were out.
Well, it's a no kayfabe zone. You know what I'm saying? No kayfabe zone. But no, I spend a lot of time working the phones. I would love to be able to go out and, grab a sponsor. I simply don't have the time. I just don't have the time to do it.
That's why they should be coming to you, is what I'm saying, that if the sponsor is out there listening, they will come to you.
Come on.
They will come to you.
Bring it my way. I'm here.
We'll take some Blue Chew money. We'll take some little blue pills or whatever.
Look, right. Harry's Club, Harry's Razor Club, Blue Chew, audio books or whatever. I'll take them all.
It doesn't even have to be themed. One of the main sponsors of the drive-through, the Jim Cornette podcast, is Manscaped, which is specifically a shaving those areas.
Hey, look,
Hearing Jim Cornette pitch a testicle shaver is always my highlight of my week.
Let me tell you, this show is open anytime for a ball manicure club. Anytime.
I think it was the members of.
I gotta get going.
Okay.
You better sit your ass right there. By the way, speaking of sitting your ass right there,
don't start with me.
Can you take a piss before the show so you don't get up in the middle of my show? I'm calling you out in front of 100,000 people now. Shut up.
I took a piss before the show.
All right, well, listen, I'm going to put Dan on. You don't forget, Dan is my co-host now. He's got authority, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, if I put him on you're in trouble, pal, okay?
You're in deep shit.
Right.
He'll rub them sideburns all over your ass. You'll be in serious shit then. You'll have chafed furs. You won't be able to sit down on that motorcycle of yours. Completely his prerogative.
Right.
It was his brother. He could choose to talk about him. I didn't want to be the one to broach the subject because, as I said, and you heard me say it to him himself, it's been done. It's been redone. He's talked about Randy. I mean, in every interview he's ever done, it's all about Randy. I wanted to talk about Lanny.
Sure.
Yeah, and that goes to what Mike was saying. I mean, yes, Randy Savage is easily one of the most prolific performers in the business.
Oh, sure.
But Lanny Poffo was one of the big names of the territory days, and the Genius was one of the more popular gimmicks, at least as far as crowd reaction. Even Leap and Lanny, and then his infamous 4-year paid vacation from WCW. People still talk about that when it comes to contracts.
Yeah, well, that, my friend, was genius.
I mean, exactly. I mean, he's got so much of his own to be proud of and to talk about.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I like that we could do that because he has some stories and he's influenced a lot of people.
Oh, sure.
That's why
he will be back. He will be back for a part 2. I already know that.
I like it.
So, Mike Murphy, you got to ask the first question tonight.
Well, see that, what they were saying, that's why with my questions, I tried to move them off. It's like, okay, you're leaving Lanny Poffo, the Genius and all, you're Randy Savage's brother. That's what I tried to stay away from. Instead of him being, because I'm sure for years growing up, he was, that's Randy Macho Man Savage. That's Randy's brother.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to stay away from that to where it was more like, hey, I want to know about Lanny Poffo. I want to know about, what's he like? What do you like to do on your off time? Do you, and in some wrestling questions, what was, the worst injury you had? Who was your favorite wrestler to work? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. And make it mostly about him.
Yeah, I think we did a real, I'm going to compliment all of us. I think we did a really good job of mixing it up without bringing it down too much for the most part. Right. Mike Messier is giving me that look of guilt. There's
no guilt on my end. I thought it was a great discussion. I think
no, it was a good discussion. I didn't, I was getting a little nervous. I'll be honest with you. When you were starting to talk about all these wrestlers who passed, I went, "Oh, Mike, don't go there, Mike," because you went somewhere different, thankfully. But I thought you were going down this road that I was trying to veer away from. But you pulled it in, and it was a good question.
Oh, thanks.
No, you got me a little scared there because you happen to do that sometimes.
Did you think I was going to ask him about the way these guys?
Here's what I do. Here's what I do when you get like that. I look at Dan in the camera like this, and I go,
he used both hands. I saw that second hand coming up. I almost got a double face.
This is like the Criterion Collection behind the scenes. But
this is what Dan the Man sees.
It wasn't. I wasn't trying to expose how different wrestlers passed away. It was more that Lanny had mentioned survivor's guilt in regards to his brother, but for me, the bigger question or the bigger topic for all of us is Lanny was in a generation of guys, let's be honest, 30 or 40% of those guys are not with us anymore.
Yep. Well, he was part of a generation of guys, largely men who lived their gimmick. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example. And Mikey, you'll appreciate this being a filmmaker.
Yes.
You have an actor. You hire an actor to play a role.
Yep.
Okay. Let's say Susie has to play Maria. Okay.
Okay.
She plays Maria on camera. When you say cut, she can go home and be Susie again.
Right.
Okay. Randy Savage can't go home and be Randy Poffo.
Correct.
He's Randy Savage.
Yep.
Okay. Hulk Hogan can't go home and be Terry Bollea.
Right.
He's Hulk Hogan. In other words, the point I'm making is these guys, they have to be who they are 24/7. You can't go out in public and say, oh, no, I'm not Hulk Hogan. My name's Terry Bollea. Because everybody looks at you and goes, bullshit, you're Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And just to touch on some of that, Angelo, and you know as well as I do, you know, you were in the business for all years, and, you know, me being in the business, even in the indie circuit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Face the heel. If you're a face, yeah, you sign autographs outside and stuff like that.
Of course you do. Yeah.
But if you're a heel, you got one of two choices. You can either walk out and push people out of your way and be the heel.
Yeah.
And say, yeah, get out of my way. You know, you're all trash and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or you can sit back in the dressing room for an extra hour, and while they're
wait for everybody to go home
down the ring, you're sitting there waiting so you can go out to your car.
Yeah, I know.
Because you really don't. When I was face, I remember one quick story in particular. I was in Dillsburg, PA, at the big event center, and that's actually what it's called.
I know.
I was engaged to a nice young lady, and her aunt and uncle had come from Hamburg out to see the show.
Yeah,
gotten them tickets and all. I was with SSW, and we were getting ready to leave, and I was a face at the time.
Yeah, and
we were leaving the crowd, we were leaving through the crowd, and this little girl comes up to me and asks me for an autograph. And I'm like, sure. You know, I write something out to her. Well, then another one, and then another one.
Yeah.
This girl's uncle was trying to talk to me as she grabbed me. She says, look, we might as well go to the car. He'll be along. He's not going to leave here until anyone who wants his autograph has it.
Yeah.
That's a rule that I picked up and I touched on when Lanny was saying about taking care of the fans.
Yeah.
When I was a face, I wouldn't leave an arena until anyone who wanted my autograph had it.
Right.
You know, and that's
your job as a face. That's what you get paid for. You remember something? You get paid for the night, not the match.
Exactly.
Let me make that clear. I'm going to say that for every indie wrestler watching the show. You get paid for the night, not the match. That means from the time you get to the building to the time you leave the building to the time you get in your car, you're on the payroll. You're on the clock. Yep. And if a kid comes up and says, can I have an autograph? Your answer better be yes, absolutely. Okay.
Oh,
your job doesn't stop when the bell goes ding, ding, ding.
Right. I told a kid who was green in the business. I was at the Wanacue Children's Hospital. We were doing a free show.
Right.
And this kid came up to him and asked him for an autograph, and he's like, sure. I don't even remember what the guy's name was. It was actually his first match. It was a battle royal. He turns around and looks at me and goes, man, I can't believe it. I just signed my first autograph. I said, that's cool. I said, remember one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that? I said, if you learn nothing else in this business, they want your autograph.
Absolutely.
They don't need your autograph.
Absolutely.
And that goes to what you were asking about with getting over versus being over.
Being over. There's a big difference between getting over and being over. Okay? Yeah. Some people don't have to work at it. Some people have to work at it really, really hard.
Right.
Okay? Randy Savage didn't have to work at being over. He was over.
Yeah. No, it was over from get-go.
Yeah. Exactly. Lanny, on the other hand, had to work at it.
Right.
You know, not everybody has Randy Savage's physique.
Over and stayed over.
I think it's
That's
testament.
The difference, Mike. Go ahead, Dan.
It's a testament to the performers too, because you have to think of Randy Savage, this larger than life, the with the look and the sounds. Like, okay, I could see that making sense.
Yeah.
Then you in a vacuum, think about the mentality of we're going to have a good-looking guy wear a cap and gown and read poetry. That on paper sounds like a terrible idea.
I know.
But it works because you had the right person doing it. There are so many good gimmicks and so many good people through the years that have gotten over. And when you think about it, in a vacuum, they had no business being anywhere near the card, but Absolutely. It worked for them.
And
we've seen – hold on, Mike. We've seen time and time again the perfect gimmick on the wrong guy.
Yes.
We've seen that historically time and time again.
Right. We talked
and they go over like a fart in church.
Exactly. It came up on the show last week with
not easy. People don't understand, Dan. They don't understand how much work goes into getting someone over.
Right.
They don't. They think, okay, let me say this guy's personality in real life is this. Okay, so we'll do this with him. And you go out, and what you do is you either give them too much, which never gets over,
right,
or you don't give them enough, which doesn't get over.
Right.
There has to be this thing. It's called balance. It's balance. It's the right person at the right time with the right gimmick.
But now,
Lanny got lucky. Go ahead, Mike.
Also, like you said, sometimes they get lucky, and the dumbest gimmick, the dumbest thing on earth, shoots right to the top and is so over. For example, Doink the Clown.
I'll give you one better. That's classic, and you all know it. You all know it. Adrian Adonis in the flower shop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was more ridiculous than Adrian Adonis in the flower shop?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But he got it over.
He got such heat for that.
How did he do it? Here's how he did it. Simple psychology. Simple psychology. He took the idea and went so far over the top that people had to either accept it as the gimmick that it was, or laugh at it for the gimmick that it was.
Right.
But either way, both scenarios got it over. They did laugh at it. Mm-hmm. They absolutely, Mikey, you're shaking your head.
Well, I got to say, Angelo, from my perspective as a young kid at that adorable Adrian Adonis,
exactly,
1986, going into WrestleMania 3, and he brought that over with him to the AWA to a lesser success. But
yeah,
that character was hated, and that was the time of AIDS. That was the time of the homosexual community being vilified in a lot of ways, but they were fighting for their rights.
Yeah.
And unlike the Goldust character 10 years later, that you could kind of make a case that Goldust was fighting.
Not even close, Mikey.
No, what I'm saying is that Adonis's character was getting hatred heat, in my opinion. He was getting real heat.
That's the reason he got over. You can't make the comparison to Goldust because Goldust, by his very definition, was androgynous.
Well, I was going
You
to say,
didn't know what gold dust was.
but my point to bring it up was that
and you
gold
weren't
dust.
supposed to know.
Well,
That was the whole point.
right, but gold dust was almost getting cool, like Vanguard, David Bowie as Iggy Stardust.
And
type of stuff.
therein
That's a fair
lies the
point.
difference. Therein lies the difference because adorable Adrian Adonis was hated, and
Right.
that's what got him over. Remember something. It doesn't matter if they're talking about you good or if they're talking about you bad, as long as they're talking about you.
About you.
Talking about you gets you over. If people are talking about you, you're over. How long you stay over depends on how long they're talking about you. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, no, I was saying that's a fair point in relation to Gold Dust because Adrian Adonis was very much I guess the modern term they call it go away heat versus the crowd reaction. But
yeah, and I got a problem with that term. Because there's no such
so
thing.
do I.
There's no such thing as go away heat. You have heat or you don't. It's that simple.
I remember when I first got involved in kind of being part of like the early days of the message boards. We back in the late 90s, we called it X-Pac heat. It was the
X Factor heat. Just incredible.
But I think that certain bits work, but to go off of what you were saying is like some of the business it's crazy how one of the things I love to joke about is some of the ads you see, like a commercial on TV. It's like, thank God I don't work for an ad campaign, because if you had came to me and said we're going to use cows to sell chicken sandwiches, fired, get out of my office.
Dan, if I could, I want to, and Angelo, you know this. I'm going to bring this up. I'm putting you on the spot.
Good.
This goes back to what, 2003 at the San Francisco Casino.
Good.
We did that show. About a week before the show, on the local cable access and local channels down in Atlantic City, and this is when they still had them. Yeah. They ran promos for the show at the Sands.
Yeah.
They had Angelo said, "Hey, I need you here on this date at this time. Bring your gear because you might be dressed in street clothes, you might be in your gear, that kind of thing." He said, "We're going to cut promos for the show."
Yeah, sure did.
And I said, "Okay."
I had a TV crew and everything.
Right. Pretty boy Larry Sharp was there. I was there. Ravage, also known as Bodacious Brad. Mike Thorne was there. Now, the funny thing is, Mike Thorne and I had known each other for a while, and we had worked each other a couple times.
Right.
Now, we're walking through the crowd going up to the interviews area. Well, you got to, you got to play the role. Even if you're walking through the casino, you play the role. Well, the one gentleman who we saw at the last show over in Jersey that I went to with him, what was his name? Is it the Walker type deal?
Oh, Tim. Yeah, Tim.
Tim is between me and Mike Thorne.
Yeah.
Well, Mike and I had worked it out walking through the crowd. We're going to get heat with each other. And we're talking big shit to each other. Like, I'll slap you so hard I'll knock the taste out of your mouth.
Right.
You'll wake up, your clothes will be out of style. Okay? And we're talking, and people are looking at us and, oh, those are the wrestlers. Those guys really hate each other. And, the only thing we didn't do was say something about each other's mother,
Yeah.
But, okay, 24 hours later, I get a phone call. Hello? Mike, yeah. What the fuck? What kind of heat do you have going with Mike Thorne?
Yeah.
Angela, what are you talking about? Tim said you and him had heat. You got heat with this guy? I'm like, Angela, we were working. What? I said, it was work. I said, doesn't Tim know the difference? He says, dude, he came up to me after you guys left. He's like, I think these two really hate each other,
Still real to him, damn it.
But it was the perfect example of here's a guy.
Well, the problem was Well, yeah, he is. He's a huge mark.
And
He's 50, he's 56 years old and he still thinks it's real. Here's the problem, though. And it wasn't the fact that he's a mark, which he is, but the problem was nobody cleared it with me.
But it was
that was the problem.
They didn't run it by the booking committee first, huh?
I am the booking committee.
right. Was it over?
Of course it was over.
There you go.
Absolutely.
When you can make one of the people that works there believe that it's real, and he goes to the promoter and saying, "Hey, we need to watch these guys." And Mike and I weren't even working together on that show.
No.
He never even showed up for the show.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, guys, go ahead, Mike Messier.
I wanted to make a comparison of Lanny Poffo and his brother, Macho Man Randy Savage, of the 80s. Remind me of Jeff and Matt Hardy of the next generation, the Attitude Era and beyond. In that, one guy, Jeff, kind of like Macho Man Savage, was maybe more celebrated or exhibited initially as a top guy.
Yeah.
But it's not a perfect comparison, but in some ways, Lanny, maybe like Matt Hardy, is the more grounded, more cerebral, more down to earth guy. And I'm glad that we've had both Macho Man and Leap and Lanny in our lives as wrestlers. And that book that you have behind you on your presentation tonight, Angelo, I own that book. I had a copy of that book, actually, and it's a fun book to read. It was
Lanny's actually got a couple of books out.
Yeah.
He has a children's book out, too.
That's great.
Did you guys know that? He's got a children's book out. Yeah. He also wrote a book. He wrote a whole book. Check this out. He wrote a whole book on why you shouldn't smoke. And maybe I should read that book.
Yeah, he has done a lot of health advocacy the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's been very smart. He saved his money. His father gave him some very wise advice. SYM, save your money.
Yep.
All right, well, guys, if there's nothing else, let's go around and give the plugs. Murphy, we'll start with you.
I don't have any.
Yeah, you do.
Mike
Murphy on Facebook.
Huh?
Mike Murphy on Facebook.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying.
Well, it doesn't go without saying. You have to say it, schmuck.
Don't you start with me, I swear to God.
Mike Messier, show him how it's done, brother.
MikeMessier.com is there for all your Mike Messier needs, wants, and desires. The Mike Messier YouTube page has got Wrestling Sun. The Impeccable was released on May 5th because it was filmed on Cinco de Mayo 2018 and takes place on Cinco de Mayo. That's a film that I wrote, directed, and produced.
Yeah.
The Avalonia Film Festival is still accepting submissions. I want to thank all the filmmakers. You can find us on Film Freeway or AvaloniaFestival.com.
Yeah.
Most importantly, last night I taped a very special episode of the Refs Roundtable with Nikita Berezhnikov, and that's available now on the Wrestling with the Future podcast family. We also taped an episode with Dan the Man and Evan Ginsberg of the Wrestling with the Future podcast, and just happy to be involved. It's been a big week here for the podcast team, and just keep on trucking there, everybody. MikeMessier.com.
That, my friend, is how you get yourself over.
There you go.
Dan the Man. You got to find work.
Mike got himself over so hard he plugged the first episode I hosted.
That's right.
There you
go. Took my thunder. No, like Mike said, check us out on YouTube. We also have our Twitter page, Wrestling Future. That's Wrestling No G, Wrestling Future. I'm on Twitter now at @theman_WWTF, and we have our Facebook groups. Check us out wherever you can find your podcasts.
And And I appreciate that. And by the way, you did a hell of a job. Again, I want to say thank you for hosting the show last night. It was a great show. You and Mikey did a great job with Evan. I enjoyed it so much that I'm going to have you do it again.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, you're going to do it again. And I'm going to tell you who you're going to interview right now for the whole world to see.
We'll find out live together.
Are you pulling a name out of the hat like Lethal Lottery compatible?
No, I will be on the show, but I'm going to sit back and be, just a participant.
Gotcha.
You, Mikey and Dan are going to interview Scott Teal.
The writer, correct?
Scott Teal, the writer.
Yes. Yeah. Very accomplished writer in the wrestling genre.
Yes.
I will be on the show because it's my show. But I'm going to sit back and ask questions just like the rest of you. I'm going to let you run that one.
All right.
Okay?
Sounds good. Yeah, no, I know the name. I look forward to that.
Yeah, everybody knows the name Scott Teal. He's written, Mikey, like 200 plus wrestling books?
Yeah, he often is brought in as a co-writer for professional wrestlers doing their autobiographies, if I'm not mistaken.
I think his the Crowbar Press, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've done 3 shows this week, you guys, and it's been a bang-up show, like boom, boom, boom. And then next week, because we got Brian Pillman Jr., that's going to be a great show.
Yes.
Because he's coming back twice for us.
He does know that I have his father's action figure tattooed on my leg, right? He knows that?
No, he doesn't, but you're going to show him.
He does know. We've been in touch for years, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because it won't freak him out.
Has he ever seen it?
I will
seen it, yeah.
I will try and get hold of Phil after.
Do that.
Yeah, seeing as how I live 10 minutes away from him.
Well, yeah, reach out to him. If you can get him on the show, that's great. Because I've tried to get him on the show, and I can't get him. Keeps avoiding me. I think he's afraid.
Either that, or I'll try and get hold of MadDog Michael Tierson.
Who the fuck is that?
MadDog Tierson was a radio show host here in Philly on 93.3 and 94 YSP. In the Daily News, he also had a wrestling column called I know you have no idea. You don't know how to read.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Dan.
we're both mutually shrugging here. No offense to your friend, but I've never heard of him either.
He used to have a weekly column in the Daily News, and
the Daily News went out of business 30 years ago, Mike.
You know what? Never mind.
Sorry, MadDog.
Man, you might want to edit that out on the YouTube video. Angelo, end it with the plugs.
All right, you guys.
I'll get somebody on who knows about wrestling. I'll get you somebody who knows about wrestling.
Facebook.com/Wrestling with the Future. Questions and comments to wrestlingwiththefuture@gmail.com. We now have a private group on Facebook. It's Wrestling with the Future Podcast. That's our private group. We have a public page. It will only be up for a few more days. That will come down. You will have to join the private group to get into that one. All right, folks. Take care. Have a great time. Be safe. Enjoy your weekend coming up. For Dan the Man Sebastiano, Mike Messier, and Mike Armageddon Murphy, I'm Psychic Medium Angelo. Happy wrestling, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.